Okay, great. So good morning, everyone. We're recording. I want to introduce Alicia Freites, who's leading our Knowledge of Return on Investment and Metrics session today. She hails from Toronto, so we have quite the international attendance at this particular study group set. So I was really excited about that. So Alicia is a customer experience practitioner with over 6 years of experience working, starting out as a business analyst and marketing manager, moving around into sales and service analytics and customer experience. So she's gotten a really great view from a number of different perspectives around this. And she's an avowed technology enthusiast with professional certification from Data Analyst Bootcamp. So she knows actually how the calculations work. And she hails from University of Toronto. She loves helping and empowering others to become exceptional and is proud of her ability to be a team player. So thank you for being that and stepping in so that I could get some family business taken care of. Her particular interest is in technology for improving customer experience. She's now at Tech Adaptica, a design and technology startup that develops educational technology products and services. Prior to that, she focused on CX and sales and service analytics at Trilogy Education, Blueprint Software, and Sun Media. So over to you, and thank you very much for coming in and being here on our holiday weekend, and welcome.
Oh, thank you.
Heather did a semester at U of T. You have alumni on the,
oh, nice.
the call. Yeah, great.
Okay, let's start with the presentation. Here are some general definitions about what is measurement. A measurement is a data point at a single point of time, while metrics is data that is within a context. Like, for example, measurement will be the number of visits to a website, and the metric will be the variance or the change in the visitors in a website. Operationalization is the process of strictly defining the variables into measurable factors. The process defines fuzzy concepts and allows them to be measured empirically and qualitatively. You have here the links, so if you want to read a little bit more about it. Then we have how to put everything together according with the CXPA. You have to focus on the mechanics of measurement, the customer experience, to ensure that the organization is truly customer-centric. Customer experience research is a scientific way of gathering and measuring data related to different customer experience measurements. Measuring CX should be a systematic approach to identify the problem or the challenge and develop the research plan to collect data, analyze the data appropriately, and then using that information to impact results. A measurement is a means to the end and not a goal itself. That means that you need to actually analyze the measurement, not just collecting them, but actually be insightful in your analysis. Any questions about this basic definition? Okay, good. Let's go to the data types. There are two kind of data types: primary data and secondary data. The primary data is a type of data that never existed before, so you seek to collect that data for a specific purpose, while secondary data refers to the data that has been previously published, such as the customer experience best practices. You have here a little diagram with the differences between primary and secondary data. We also have quantitative data and qualitative data. The quantitative data deals with numbers and it can be easily measured, while the qualitative data is more difficult to measure. It's more like descriptions. Yes?
So what type of data is, I asked you this yesterday too, but what type of data is kind of the easiest and most effective to get for CX, and what's the hardest? You know, this is a subject that comes up all the time around, you know, we're swimming in data, but we have no information.
But the easy data is to go and collect data from the operation, sales data, marketing data, right? That is easy to collect. And it's more difficult to collect the sentiment or capture the sentiment of the perception from the customer. So that's why you have different techniques to actually collect that kind of data.
And then to quantify
organize it.
Right, and then to quantify the qualitative to make it
Exactly.
so people pay attention, right? Because sentiment is kind of technical term here, squishy, right? Yeah.
Maybe the next slide will give some examples, more specific, and the difference between quantitative and qualitative data. The quantitative data, it can be also divided by continuous data and discrete. Discrete data is kind of a count that you can count 1 to like the amount of emails you can, or the person, you cannot count as 1.5 person, right? That's discrete data. Continuous data, on the other hand, could be divided and reduced by a finer levels of the measurements of continuous data. It could be one, you can do decimal points, and you normally use 0. The qualitative data could be binomial, nominal, or ordinal. When you classify or categorize something, you can create qualitative data attributes for that data. And there are 10 main kind of qualitative data. The binary, that is could be 1 and 0, that the computer works. And it's gonna be right and wrong, true or false, that is the Boolean, or accept or reject hypothesis, for example. On ordered or nominal data, we assign individual items to name categories, but they don't have, and they have a specific rank. Don't have a specific rank, so it's not ordered. Like, for example, marital status. You can order ordinal data, some items that assign certain categories, and some kind the implicit order, like short, medium, and tall, like the scales that we use also in the surveys. That can be also kind of order, the amount or the magnitude that you assign for each variable. Any questions?
Can you provide another example of unordered or nominal data?
Yes, you can. Well, I say like your scales are ordered data, right? So you have those categories. You have categories of short, medium, and tall, and like escape. For me, another example. Ordered data.
So could it be like more
it
like
could be
feelings
also priorities? Yeah, it could be priorities too, right? Like risk can be also ordered, right? Like higher, medium, or urgent, not that urgent, kind of.
Yeah, I was looking more for unordered. Sorry, unordered.
Like chocolate, vanilla, strawberry.
Yes.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. Okay, all right. Thanks.
Using emotional measurements and big data. So because we were talking a little bit about qualitative data, I thought that it was good to talk about this point. So we have big data, that is, Gartner defined big data as having 3 attributes: high volume, high velocity, and high variety. New technologies that are designed to handle big data in a massive scales are the AI tools, such as the chatbot, are they also machine learning methodologies, like recommendation engines, or like neural networks, and a lot of different machine learning methodologies. One is,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yes, sure.
How many of you all are actually being able to access big data? I find with most of the customers that I deal with, and they're big Fortune 50 companies, they haven't set up their data hierarchies in big data, because you have to know what you're going to ask before you like build the database. They haven't set it up for CX. So you're constantly trying to figure out how to manage that as compared to the old fashioned, and I'll call it SQL databases, where you could do queries that enable you to get things like customer effort calculations. Are you all encountering any differences between moving from what I'll call more queryable databases to big data? Or are you even that far in your CX journey?
I used to work at a Fortune 10, and we didn't even attempt to use the big data because, frankly, the volume of data, because it was a B2B company, was not sufficient for it to even make sense to talk about the big data.
Yeah, it's sort of like it's like real time, right? I get asked all the time, can you do real time journey mapping? And it's like, why?
Why?
Why
Yeah,
would you want to do that?
because somebody went to a conference and
yeah,
heard the term real time.
yeah, real time isn't a, so. And again, I know that sounds, it's snarky, but
Yeah.
but you know, I think that, and Alicia's going to get to this in a minute. Some of the calculations that she has and that we've done traditionally, yeah, seem to be more in our toolkit than the big guns. So, as anyone else, Mark, what is your comment on that?
Yeah, probably the big issue nowadays is not necessarily the technology side, because everyone can afford now database systems that handle large amounts of data. I mean, before Excel was limited to 64,000 rows, now it's like much bigger. So people can handle much bigger parts of data for speed, for size, and so on. But the big issue that I usually find is not having the technology or having data available, but the quality of the data in itself. And to give you an example out here from the Middle East, when we did a data cleanup project for one of the banks, you obviously have very predominant names like Ahmed or Mohammed. And traditionally in the Middle East, especially in the slightly older generation, I mean older meaning kind of like my age, date of birth was not necessarily perfectly recorded. So you know, pretty much when people went in to register the childbirth, they registered male on January 1st and female on July 1st. Simon, I don't, correct me if I'm wrong here, but so that means that you have like a huge chunk of people that are called Mohammed Ahmed or Ahmed Mohammed, or in any type of spelling with that date of birth. So the problem is not in kind of like having fancy systems to run kind of like segmentation and all that stuff, but rather to be able to keep the customers apart, not have duplicates and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And this is probably to think through. The measurements themselves are fairly easy, but I mean at times, but crap in, crap out with the data. Sorry, my French here, but it's like, yeah.
Yes. Okay. So the natural language processing, or is a big data tool to analyze or unordered text. So you use it to analyze social media listening tools, like they use this to get the data from the social media. Then you have also online reviews that you can analyze with this technique. Call center data, the notes from the agents. As well, there are tools that can translate speaking to text and then be analyzed. Then you have complaints that you can also analyze with text analytics, and then product feedback. The CXPA recommend to, if you want to measure brand values, use a brand tracker. Here I have a link to how to different 5 examples on sentiment analysis and how to use it for improving customer experience. Let's talk then about the customer experience measurement framework. We have 5 points here. First, you need to define what you want to measure and when. You can use relational surveys and transactional surveys. Measure what you want to know. It can be descriptive, perception, and outcomes. So you can use metrics that are descriptive, that will tell you what happened. For example, how long did the customer have to wait until a call center employee answered the call, or perceptions metrics, measures that are like how the customer thinks and feels about what happened, and outcome metrics that describe what the customer does as a result of that perception of the experience that you deliver to the customer. For example, if they will purchase from your company again, or they will recommend your services. A meta-analysis is a statistical technique that is used to combine results from multiple studies in an effort to increase the power of those studies, or resolve any uncertainty between the different reports if they disagree. You can use Likert scale when responding to a Likert scale questionnaire. Respondents will specify their level of agreement or disagreement in a series of scales. It can be, range could be different. You can use scales that maybe offer 5 points, 7 points, 9 points responses, and always have a neutral point between either disagree or disagree. Any questions?
Hi, this is Jane. I'm in hospitality, and so when I'm looking at descriptive and perception, those two can be conflated quite easily by a guest. How do you propose I could differentiate when I'm getting feedback from somebody? How do you ask the question to make sure that you're getting it a descriptive rather than a perceived response?
Okay, the measurement is more, the descriptive is more related with the type of data that you are collecting. So descriptive is that you can apply the statistics directly to the data. Like, for example, this example that says that you have to wait until the concert employee answered the call, right? So what really happened there? And the perception will be measures that the customer thinks. So it's when you are actually, yeah, when you, how they feel or how they think the interaction was.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. The CX, the next step will be collect the data. Make sure that you ask the right customer with the right questions at the right time. So, and that is straightforward. Then we have to analyze the data, and it will depend on the metric that you use, what you're measuring exactly, and how you are analyzing it. But make sure that you interpret the data in the right way. You can read, and you can read more in this Maslow hierarchy that needs to interpret your data here. Maybe you can find some answers as well about the perception and description of the event. Share your data with the people who need to know, and make sure that the data is applicable for the various groups. So for example, you can segment your NPS score by different silos or areas in the business. Give the contact center their specific NPS with a focus on coaching and process improvement. Present your sales NPS as well for the sales team. And report your focus on up and cross-selling, for example, for the sales team. You can use methodologies as storytelling and gamification to increase engagement and make the sharing fun and memorable. So it's more like simplify or make it the information and the analysis easy or simple to understand to the different audiences. And here you have a link to 5 examples on how, or tactics on how to present your storytelling. Then we have the characteristics of best measurement programs. The first one is that you need to go top to bottom in the culture that embrace the metrics. So for improved customer experience, and for that you need to buy into how the measurement programs is going to work, and the metrics that you are going to use across the organization. Cohesion and harmonization between tactical, the interaction, and the strategic, that is the relationship customer experience measurement. So make sure that the interactions that you are measuring are linked to the strategy and the overall relationship for the customer in the company. Make a clear linkage between survey results and other metrics, reflecting a consistent view of the company goals. Sometimes I give an example, like for example, the CMO has certain goals and strategies, and then the managers are measuring their own programs for that type of metrics probably don't reflect or give any information that is related with the goals that the CMO has. Research design that includes sufficient granularity to support tactical decisions and line level accountability. Like for example, the scales that you use for your surveys and the amount of data that you have for the transactional, how you are gonna make that transactional survey link to the transactions from the business. And so when you design your research, you have to have the granularity to support those tactical decisions, right? Flexible measurements, vision, and strategy that stand up to business changes and evolving needs. That measurement has to be with the vision and the strategy that is not going to be changing all the time. So it has to be some flexibility, but you have to compare results over time. So it's good to have that into account and just not changes when the business change for the sake for changes, right? So just make sure that you have that vision and strategy within your plan. And the challenges of finding the single best measurement. So we have the service quality is originally conceptualized as a gap between expectations and the consumer's overall assessment of the service encounter. And that is the definition of the CXP. And there are several prevalent methods that you can use for tracking and scoring the effectiveness of the customer experience. One of the benchmarks that I read was that the leading companies for customer experience, they have up to 9 metrics that they measure. And here we have the main ones like customer expert score, net promoter score, customer satisfaction, word of mouth, and other methodologies can be that. Those are the main ones. So the other ones can be like part of these main ones. Any questions? Okay.
Hi, it's Jane again. It's really great to see the word of mouth index on here. Can you talk a little bit about that? I've never seen that before, and that's a conversation that happens in my office a lot. The importance of word of mouth and how do we show that?
Yes, but you can use word of mouth. Like for example, you can ask the question in your surveys if you refer how many times did you talk about in positive way of if you refer the customer, the company to how many times. You can use that. You can use, I use the why for the recommend question. You can classify that by the net promoter score and understand if they are talking about you positively or negative. You can do it by product or you can do it by area of the business. You can also use the social listening to word of mouth. Mm-hmm. You can use and also do the sentiment analysis. right? To see if they are talking positively or negatively with you. You can also use the reviews online if your business has that review online. You can also use like a reference program.
We have a
Any of
question.
those.
Will social media sharing come under word of mouth as well, or is that usually elsewhere?
I think everything that you can use to track when people are talking about your positively or negative about your company will be considered word of mouth. Anything?
Oh, great.
Okay. And these are the customer experience metrics. Customer effort is a micro level indicator for a specific interaction. And here is the question, how easy was it to get the help you wanted today, for example? It could be posed that question differently. So there are different ways that you can ask that question, but the important part is that it's very specific for the interaction. Then you have the customer CSAT measurement, that is a specific interactions and tend to be macro level when you measure the overall journey. And then you have the recommend question, that is the NPS, that measures the loyalty to tend to be a macro level outcomes of the customer experience, or measure the relationship that the customer has with your company. I changed this image to put some examples on how to calculate the Net Promoter Score. Excuse me. So you calculate the percentage of promoters, the percentage of detractors, and you subtract the detractors from the promoters, and you get your Net Promoter Score. Any questions about how to calculate the metrics? We spent some time yesterday about this. So I added an example.
Yeah, please, that would be great if you would go through this example, because this is almost always a question in the exam.
Yes.
And the calculation isn't intuitive. I'm math impaired, but yeah, it's not.
Yes, you take the the easy way that I think is you take the promoters, all those that provide a 9 and 10, and you divide it by the sample size of the respondents, and then you take those that responded 0 to 6 as a detractors, and you also divide it by the sample of the response, the number of responded for that specific question, and you take that percentage of promoters and you subtract the detractors percentage, and then you multiply that by 100 to make it a score. That score could be from minus 100 to 100. And what it means is that when you have a positive Net Promoter Score, is that you have a higher percentage of promoters than detractors. You can have the calculation in Excel, excuse me, where you have here how to make the calculation, and you take and you just multiply that by 100.
So in your example at the bottom over to the right, that would be 19, would be your Net Promoter Score. It's 20, yeah. Something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very good.
20. Any other questions? And also we discussed yesterday Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, just a very quick one. Just for the sake of all of us as well, when you do this calculation and you take, for example, here the NPS, 44% minus 24% equals 20%, technically. But
Yeah.
because it's a net promoter score, you never say the NPS is 20%.
Yeah.
Because the score can go from plus 100 to minus 100. And it kind of like irks me when supposedly
Yes.
specialists stand on stage at a conference, say, oh, we had like a net promoter score of 24%. And you're sitting there, it's like, clearly you don't understand how the mathematics or kind of like the system works. So for
Right.
your own sake, it's like the score after that calculation is never percent anymore.
Yes, because you multiply it by 100 to make it a score. And the thing is that I say, like, when you do the analysis for the different methodologies that you have to collect different kind of survey data and how you try to make them together, right? What I see is that the net promoter score is time, right? It's longitudinal, like it's over time. So that's why you focus on the trend and not the actual score, what is changing. But you can use the CSAT measurements that you have to actually explain that relationship, right? So that's why it's the system, right? It's not either or, but it's kind of a system that you are gonna provide, because each of the metrics will provide a different answer depending on what they are measured.
Yep. Back when Fred Reichheld was first presenting NPS to GE way back when, he actually, somebody asked the question, well, it looks like the neutrals don't count in the calculation. And he said, exactly. So if it bothers you that they're not being counted anywhere but the denominator, that was intentional and part of the design.
Yeah, but I actually sometimes use the neutrals as well. I put like -1, 0, and 1, and I try to standardize the other metrics the same way. And I use the passive for because sometimes it's easier to try to make a change in the passive to the promoters than
Yes.
try to get the detractors to go, right? So
Yep.
the effort that you have. But it's right, yes. You don't use the passive in the net promoter score calculation.
Well, you do, but it only goes into
Exactly.
the denominator. It doesn't go
Yeah.
into the top part, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's very important to do that. A lot of websites that talk about net promoter score miss that in the denominator. They just take the promoters minus the detractors, and that's not technically correct.
The other thing also, I mean, obviously the NPS is a standard measure and we shouldn't tinker around. So I see companies that go from scales of 1 to 10. It's always 0 to 10. It's 11-point scale.
Yep.
And the second thing is because people tend to compare on that. They only look at the score in itself. So one thing that for the internal analysis of CX departments, I tend to advise my clients to say, look at the average score as well. Because when you look, for example, here, I mean, roughly, let's say a 64 minus, or actually the number wouldn't work out here, but if the promoters would be, for example, 54 and the detractors would be 34, you would get the same, roughly the same score, yet the distribution of the customers is completely different. And arguably, the more detractors you have, the more of an impact you have on your business. So internally, I advise my clients, at least within the CX units, to calculate the average out here. So what would be kind of like the average scoring across all the replies to see is there a movement in there, even though the NPS might stay the same, but the average is moving up or down to kind of like catch a certain trend early on.
Yeah.
Also, looking at customer effort, what's on the screen there is the version 1.0 question. There's a version 2.0 question that's out now that fixes some of the problems with that earlier question.
Oh, okay. Would you mind sharing the source for that?
That would be great if you could do that, especially because we're going to ask that question. So if you have the version 2 as we get to that question. When we get further, that would be great. Let's keep
Yeah.
moving though, because we
Yeah.
got stuck on this yesterday, and you got under the wire exactly in an hour, but we should move forward.
Okay, this is the ROI calculation, is the net profit between cost of investment by 100, is the return on investment. And this is the most complex or difficult part to measure the value of the customer. An investment is very complex, and the practice to ensure excellent execution, it has to be inside teams, manager, employees need to take action on the feedback, and all need to work together to define how the customer experience program value will be measured. And here you have quantifying ROI paper that you can check if you want to get deeper with how to calculate the ROI. And here is how Forrester 6 steps for novice people to calculate the ROI. If you follow these steps of documenting the improvement, defining how to expect those improvements will change the customer behavior, assign some financial value to the behavior, and estimate based on worst scenario on how you're going to move that behavior, and estimate the cost for the project by plugging the data in a spreadsheet to run what if scenarios. This is the customer experience value equation that was developed by Oracle. We have 3 elements that you can measure to measure the value. It will be like the acquisition, retention, and efficiency. And these are kind of the measurements that you can measure to assign a value for your customer programs. They make clear that it's a very cumbersome calculation and needs a lot of work to be able to calculate this. I can share with you later how it's calculated, that I found a resource on Oracle on how to calculate the equation. This is the customer experience and business value, what to measure. This is a source that says like I rank the different measurements, benchmarks. So the first one is the CSAT, then comes the Net Promoter Score. Then you measure the impact on retention and renewals, then impact on revenue, impact on lifetime value, and then you have impact on operating margin, customer effort, and the impact on share of wallet. And these are the experiences that you can measure on omni-channel, mobile, a store, point of sale, or branches for banks, the call center, and the web. These are the retention metrics that you can measure. The churn rate, that is the ratio of customers that are not returning to do business with you. You take the lost customers, divided by the current customer in the period that you are measuring, month, year, whatever it is you are measuring, and you multiply that by 100, and you will get your churn rate. Then we have the customer lifetime value. Is the value by tenure. The longer they stay with you, the more value the customer will have for your business. And the amount of money, it represents also the amount of money that you will have to reinvest in customer experience programs or marketing programs. And the easier way to understand the lifetime value is if that lifetime value is greater than the cost to acquire a customer, it's a good thing. But if the inverse, like the cost to acquire is greater than the lifetime value, could mean that either you are spending too much money to acquire your customers, or you are not retaining long enough those customers. And that tells about a lot about the healthy of the business, right?
So Brenda asked, does current when calculating churn, include or exclude those who have already left?
But I mean, the first one is the lost customers, like
So
the difference
would you
between
do
the
that on a
previous,
monthly? So the previous, you do, if you're doing it monthly, you do it monthly lost
exactly the
customers.
previous,
Okay,
the
divided by
customers by
current. Yeah.
by the current customers
So she's saying,
by
is it
100.
current net? So say you had 100 customers going in, 20 left. Current is 80.
Well, current it could be 120 if you acquire all or more,
If you
right?
acquired some. So it is
Yes, so
remaining
it's,
and acquired.
yes, the ones that you have at the end of the period and the ones that you lost during that period.
Okay. I have an actual algorithm for this that if someone,
Okay.
I have a few of them. No, if a few of you want it, I send it out to a couple of people yesterday.
Yeah, for sure.
We have a pretty robust lifetime and CLTV Excel spreadsheet. And again, everybody, the way that we do, I was trained, and this is back in the dark ages, I did not only actual lifetime value, but also strategic lifetime value. So, so I have a couple spreadsheets and then take them with whatever word of you know, this is just the way we used to do it at Peppers and Rogers and KPMG. So there's so many ways to do this, and this is a great simple approach. So I'm happy to share it. So just ping me and I'll email it to you.
Yeah, what's interesting is how do you calculate lost customers? Just trying to visualize that.
Lost customers?
Well, so
Right.
yeah, well, you know, I mean, if you're really sophisticated, you have somebody who is a lot, depending on the model, right? If you expect them to buy every month and you've not had them buy in 2 months or 3 months or 4 months, when are they become inactive? When do they become lost?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's a time factor. Okay.
Well, there's time, or I didn't renew on my subscription is pretty clear.
Yeah, that
So
one is straight.
yeah, so it does, I think it depends on your business model, right, Alicia?
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, in our business, we actually have external sources that we look at for that as well. We have building permits that we look at. And if we had customers who used to bring us quotes but now don't, then we also consider those lost customers.
Yeah.
So like you said, it depends on your business model.
Like
Okay.
you can have voluntary and involuntary churn too. So like those that if you are an utility company and you move to another utility because you
Right.
move the area, something that is involuntary, right? So you. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, the next one is the root cause. The root cause analysis determines the real causes of your customer experience program. You identify and document the people, activities, processes, policies, and technologies that shape every customer interaction. And you use the ecosystem map to prioritize the root cause that your company must address in order to deliver exceptional customer experience. What that means is that, for example, you have your products and you have different activities that will impact the perception for the products, right? So you have here the assembly, the logistic, and transportation. They say that your product assembly is zero errors and it's a best quality product. But something happened in logistic and it was messed up the order or something happened and it didn't get into the cost, then you have to see all the different processes for the product to understand what was happened there, right? If it's one of these areas or even within the logistic, you see warehouses and shipping, it could be something in there or even deeper. So you go to the details to understand and find the root cause for that problem. And you can use a technique that is the 5 whys. And you ask 5 whys why this happened, and you get deeper until you find the root cause for the problem. Any questions? Then I added this Wipro analytical framework, and it's a planning approach that they use in 3 phases for customer improvement and to address the value-driven approach for the customer experience initiative. So the first one is blueprinting on mapping all the process flows, KPIs and dimensions, and it goes deeper from the overall journey to each detailed journey for that is involved in all the processes. So they map everything. You have the value analysis, assessing and prioritizing initiatives based on customer experience impact, and the realization that is implementing the prioritized initiative with a special emphasis on the user journeys. And you have here a link if you want to get deeper in the methodology that they use. So we understand that the difference between, you need to understand the difference between the research data, when it's primary, secondary data, the type of data that you put together to create the insightful analysis, to be able to make, collect those data and put them together for your analysis. And learn how to operationalize the variables and build hypothesis testing and use a scientific approach. It's good to have that as a background knowledge to understand and give more insightful analysis for the business. Studying new technologies and methodologies and how to use them specifically for customer experience and how to present results with storytelling. Simplify and share to communicate results across all teams, and build dashboards with all the kind of data like qualitative, quantitative, and operational metrics has to be in the dashboard. And I link this, I like very much the session that we have for the strategic on how the scorecards works and how each area will affect the other areas. And for that, you will need to collect different kind of metrics for that. Okay, we finished. Any
Great.
questions?
Any questions or discussion on this before we start with the set of questions? This has been great, Alicia. Very interesting.
Thank you.
Can you go back to the root cause slide really quick? I just have a quick question about the depth of the material on this. We won't need to be able to recite things like the Kappa plans, that sort of thing, right? It's more of a general knowledge on root cause.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask you if anyone knows what this diagram is called.
No. It's a vision on how to visualize the different kind of parts of what it means to be an ecosystem, right? It's just one individual thing, but it's everything that is around it. Right? Like the closed loop that we have for all the processes, and understand that it's not just the product assembly. It could be also logistic, and it could be also transportation. And within those, you have either other processes, right? Like within that it could be affecting the product and the perception for the customer. So the deeper you go is to, well, if you have to, sometimes you don't have to go that deeper, right? To understand the cause.
Great. Let's do the questions. So this time we're going to go back to A, B, or C, D, right? So if you guys want to vote on the chat, we'll just do a running visualization, and you're going to find this going to be a very interesting session.
Okay, question number 1. Which of the following is transforming relationship marketing from its initial database orientation into collaborative relationship with customers? Better customers, the internet, lower profit margins, greater demand for products.
Very similar answers as yesterday, huh? Okay, one of almost everything except for A. Mostly B and D. And the answer is?
Yeah, the answer is the internet. It says in the collaboratively relationship with customers. It means that you have more interaction with customer, right? So that the customer knows more things too. They're more knowledgeable. I know I didn't cover this in my slide, but okay. Question 2. Customer effort is essentially focused on which of the following? Promoting easy of use, simplicity, and effortless interaction with customer touchpoints, how to enhance the customer experience to drive advocacy, brand and company loyalty, building customer engagement through a cohesive branded customer experience.
Lots of A's.
Yes. Yes.
Yay.
I was thinking to put some G's, but okay, next one. Question 3. Which of the following strategies will help reduce customer effort? Predict follow-up questions and address them proactively. Train reps to navigate the emotional side of service. Make self-service easy, or ask your frontline team for feedback. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Mostly C's, but a couple A's.
Yeah. So
This is a
yes,
tough
but
one.
like yes, the question, the answer is D, as your frontline team for feedback. So anyone wants to share? What did you answer the other?
This is Mary Ann. I think
Yeah.
the answer D makes sense now that you shared it. It's like you would want to ask that feedback first, and then C and A also apply. But I think what it's going for is here, getting that feedback first before you just make changes to self-service.
Yeah.
I think that's the hook, right?
Yes, yes, I think so too.
My concern or my challenge is that it seems like you should be asking the customer directly instead of the front line.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, good point. I think
so
this question is one of the ones that almost everyone got wrong yesterday as well.
Yeah.
If they had actually asked your frontline team for feedback on customer effort, it would have been clearer, right? Because, you know, I would have answered A or C immediately as well. Not that I'm the expert, but it seems like it's not. This is one of those questions that's really kind of tough.
Yes, and the other part is sometimes we forget that the customer, there are some things that the customer don't know, but the frontline know about how that process works to help the customer. It could be processes, policies, or inside the company that are preventing the frontline to provide.
Yeah, I have a problem. I have a problem with this question, just looking at the research from DEB. I mean, they're very clear that there's 4 customer effort reduction strategies, and A is talking to the second strategy, which is next issue avoidance.
Okay.
That was why I selected that one as well. So that's interesting. But yeah, it's good to know what the canonical answer is, but yeah.
Right. Yeah, I'll have to memorize this one for the test.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, again,
Right.
this is why I think that having this study group is great, because you guys are all kind of getting tips of some of these things. And this one, you know, I remember we talked at the very beginning of what Bruce or Jean would have thought. I don't know that they would have even come up with this question. So it's very good. And Terry, you make a great point. A and B lead into C, right? So yeah, this is just kind of a word salad, another one of those word salad questions. Thank you for pulling it out, Alicia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one. Question 4, which of the following statements is true? There is a small correlation between providing customers with great experiences and positive changes in business performance. When customer experience metrics such as customer satisfaction or NPS tick up, there are increases in profits and revenues. When customer experience metrics such as customer satisfaction and NPS tick up, other business results usually do not follow. And there is no correlation between providing customers with great experiences and positive changes in business performance.
Okay, most everybody said B.
Yes, and the answer is B. And in reality, you can sometimes find that there is a small correlation, but in theory, it should have correlation with increases in profits and revenue if the net promoter score and the satisfaction is indicating that. Next question, question 5. Which of the following determines the real cost of your customer experience problems? Emotion metrics, emotion analysis, cost metrics, or root cause analysis? Did we get all the answers? Oh no, okay.
Sorry, I was on mute. Almost everyone said D, root
Yes.
cause analysis.
Yes, D. Okay, good. Yes, it's D. 6, which of the following allows an organization to do more with less? Loyalty, acquisition, efficiency, or retention?
Another tough one.
Yeah.
Okay, mostly
And
C's and D's. The
okay,
answer is
that
usually D.
is retention.
Almost no one got this one yesterday.
Yeah.
Is there a logic to the answer there?
That's a good question, isn't there?
I think from, at least from our business, it's a lot cheaper to retain a customer than to try to go out and get new customers. So,
Yeah,
True.
that was the logic, yeah.
But the question doesn't say for customers, it says an organization. That's why I chose efficiency.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Another one to memorize. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Next one. All the following are part of the customer experience value equation except A, loyalty, B, acquisition, C, retention, D, efficiency. Okay, and the answer is A, loyalty. And go back to it's acquisition, retention, and efficiency. Okay, next one. Question 8. Which of the following is the most challenging aspect of measuring the ROI of customer experience? Agreeing on the correct customer experience metrics to use, build a model that connects customer experience metrics with changes in business results, presenting the information in a way that resonates with senior management, obtaining customer experience measurements across channels, products, etc. Okay, yes, mostly bees, and yes, that's the right answer.
Yep, mostly bees.
Yes, B. I answered actually A, so for me it was more difficult to agree on how to measure.
Any
Next
comments?
one. Yeah. Okay. Measurement informs decisions, and metrics are most valuable when used for which of the following reasons: identify and fix customer problems, train employees in customer experience strategies, lessen staff turnover, or increase brand loyalty.
Okay, there's a battle between A and D.
Yeah. And the answer is A. Identify and fix customer problem. Anyone want to share the answer?
Yeah, I think A and D, you know, again, I think this is one of those classic, are we focusing on the company or the customer, right? So
Yeah.
D
Right.
is technically right? But if we're focusing on customers in this test, it's the customer first.
It's almost like A will lead to D, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One would hope.
That is true.
Okay, next. If an investment of 3,000 is made in a product and the net profit is about 500, what is the return on investment?
Get your crayons out. Bunch of good math folks here.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
The answer, please.
C, 17%.
Yeah, don't forget to divide by that 100 to get to the percent.
Yeah. NPS implementation includes which of the following? Leadership alignment and program governance, measurement, analysis, and reporting, equipping the organization to use the information, all of the above.
Everybody's getting smart to the all of the above.
All right, yes.
Okay, they got it.
Okay, next one. In the last quarter, XYZ products started with 1,000 customers, and during the same quarter, they lost 78 customers. Which of the following is XYZ products churn rate?
Okay, we got a lot of good math starties. And the answer is?
Yeah, and the answer is A.
Is that our last question, Alicia?
Yes, This is
Okay.
our last question.
Anybody want to say anything before we close out and you take a lovely long weekend?
Thank you.
Just thank you very much.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you
Yeah,
for the
thank you.
you.
discussion.